For Russia, the Middle East is a natural export market, but any venture into uncharted territory needs a personal guide. Eurasia Oil Services is just such a guide. EOS is a boutique, hands-on consultancy whose principals know both markets from the inside. Knowledge sharing was in fact the focus of an EOS workshop which headlined at this year's Myogi. EOS experts engaged with speakers from the Russian Export Center, Russian oil producer Bashneft International, and Russia Today's Middle East desk. The workshop drew a crowd from the Russian business community as well as government officials who shape export policies. EOS founder and CEO Jean Januard, who lives between Moscow and Dubai, fielded questions from companies contemplating their first steps as well as those seeking to expand their footprint abroad.
I see my added value as someone who's been mostly dealing with foreign suppliers for Russian clients. So it's altogether my understanding, knowledge, expertise, if you wish, of Russian players, of Russian technology, of Russian technological progress, and also my knowledge of the foreign markets, and namely the Middle East. The targets that the Russian suppliers or service providers may have are very diverse. Large state oil companies or large service companies, again, state-owned, or smaller players, independents, as we would call them in the Anglo-Saxon world. And these guys eventually behave with suppliers in very different ways. The reward is different. The pre-qualification process, the tendering process is different. Russian companies, Russian engineering companies, institutes, you name it, have gained huge expertise and have eventually engineered all the potential technology that eventually could be needed to produce oil. Russia has all the tools to succeed, and it's certainly all the technologies. Then the question is how you market them, how you position them. The second aspect is everything that you see now going around Skolkovo, Russian Export Center, all these basically quite new organizations that, let's face it, come from the top of the Russian government, and which are set up in order to accompany, support, finance, drive, help Russian exporters, private companies, mostly SMEs, to these markets. And I was impressed last year at the ADIPEC oil exhibition in Abu Dhabi to see how relevant, how significant the change had been from the previous years when they had no support from the Russian Export Center and from Skolkovo. Last year in 2017, in Skolkovo, at the ADIPEC, you had a Skolkovo pavilion, you had a Russian Export Center pavilion, and you had, I don't remember, but probably 30, 40 Russian companies. Some of them were medium-sized, some of them were really small shops, mostly software providers in the G&G space that were already making some inroads, and thanks to the Russian Export Center taking care of 80% of their expenses for the exhibition and coming over to Abu Dhabi, these companies had managed to be around while they were absolutely not around in the previous years, and even worse so, the guys who were around were absolutely not relevant to the market because it was It was old style, provincial, technology-only companies that had no English speakers, no English brochures, no API certification, no Middle Eastern certification. So what can you do? Do you export in Russian for Russians? Then you need to sell to the Russian oil companies which operate in the Middle East. But it's a different pitch altogether. You don't need to visit ADIPEC for this. You can visit them in Moscow or in their offices in Kurdistan, in Iraq, or in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, and you will meet them. The starting point was definitely to groom them and finance them when they take this major marketing step, which is to go and exhibit overseas. I think they have gone a long way further now because it's altogether a export support agency, export insurance agency, export credit agency. There's now a Ross Exim Bank in place. There's a export credit agency, as I was saying, which is called XR, which is the equivalent to the Exim Bank in the US or COFAS in France or Hermes in Germany. And you have, one of them in each European or Western country. I think that the speech, the talk that was given by their director for the support to the oil and gas sector this morning at our workshop is a significant step forward. How and what the means, what the tools, I would say, are in order to support Russian exporters.
So, if you are a Russian exporter looking to leverage the right tools to achieve the right results, look no farther than EOS, your personal guide to the Middle East.